5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. Still having trouble with this brand new system that we've got here. It's doing all sorts of strange and wonderful things that we there. But unfortunately, we don't have any choice because the one that we would prefer to use costs about $575 a year to for us to do. So unfortunately, yes, we're stuck. We're stuck with this one at the moment. Welcome to the final edition of Full Course Yellow for 2024. We're going to sort of catch up on the weekend's Formula One action. We're going to catch up on a little bit of news as well. There's been a little bit of stuff happening, and we're also going to sort of wrap up the year as well. And to help me to join me in doing this, we have alongside me, we got Richard Outram, we have Peter Johnson, and we have Craig Doc Latigo. G'day guys, how are we all?
Great.
Evening, Brett.
Great,
Hello,
Brett.
everyone.
Hi.
There we are. We've got the one thing that it does do, every time you change scenes, the logo goes back to 100% when it should be set at 35. So anyway, welcome, and let's first of all, before we get on to the sort of the year in general, let's talk about the Grand Prix. Now I got to be admit, I took no interest in the Grand Prix at all. I sort of got up in the morning. I was up at 12 o'clock, just as it was about to start, and then I thought, oh, do I really just want to sit up and watch this until 2 o'clock in the morning? And I thought, no, I probably don't. I just want to go to bed. So that's what I did. Peter, I imagine you stayed up and watched it live, did you?
I did, but I should have taken your advice, because once Oscar was taken out, the interest of the constructor was virtually done. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always hard with the last round. You know, when the championship, the drivers' championship, was all sort of wrapped up already, and then you only had the constructors' championship to worry about, and McLaren sort of looked on top. I mean, well done to Oscar for coming back through and doing so well to get back up into the points and all the rest of it after getting turned around. What did we think of the situation with Verstappen? I mean, Verstappen got a penalty for it, but I've heard a lot of people say that they thought he shouldn't have. They just said, look, it was a racing incident. So, Pete, what was your assessment of it?
I felt he could have been a bit more patient. He didn't need to do it didn't need to overtake him on the first lap. I don't think there was much of a gap there, and I felt he could have been a bit more patient. He didn't need to go such hell for leather to do it.
I've got a question for you then, Pete. What do you think of the comment that he said, here's a taste of next year?
Well, you get that. It's nice. It adds a bit of spice to things. But I think the penalty was there, and I think he just needed to be a bit more measured. It was a bit unnecessary given the drivers' championship was decided. So, and he wasn't in the frame for the constructors. So.
Yeah, I think if McLaren had have lost, they'd have been even angrier with the situation. But I think as someone pointed out, I think it was Nick Damon pointed out on Midweek Motorsport this morning that he was Radio Le Mans. He was saying that it may well have also been a bit of sending off a bit of a signal to Max as well, saying that look, you might get away with some of this stuff with Lando. Lando might defer to you on occasions, and some of the other guys, but I'm not going to get out of your road just because you're Max Verstappen. I'm going to hold my ground, and you're going to have to find your way around me because you're not going to bluff me like you bluff them.
Oscar is a clean racer. He's a gentleman racer, but he's got that mongrel that we talked about that Daniel and Mark didn't seem to have. He's got that little bit of mongrel in him and I think that'll make him a world champion eventually.
He certainly seems to have it. Like that's why I think he's a better racer than Lando is. I think like Lando's done very well and he's a very fast driver. But I think when it gets to that sort of that putting your elbows out, I think Oscar has shown that he's more likely to say no. You're not coming through.
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of your road. So if you want to get past me, you're going to have to earn it and work your way past me. Otherwise, I'm not going to just say, like, oh, okay, well, I won't force them.
Oh, it's a great Max Verstappen. They better move out of the way. No, don't see that happening.
The other thing is, obviously, it was alluded that Max immediately after the race went into the garage. Obviously, he was allowed and apologised to Oscar. The only person and maybe the people that were within an immediate vicinity, other than Oscar, would be able to judge how sincere his apology was.
I think when he does apologise, he is sincere. I don't think he's a bad person.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, I think he's. I think the fact that he did, that he apologised. He apologised at all is a sort of indicative of the fact that like he wanted to go out on good terms and all the rest of it, and didn't want to sort of create too much hassle. So, and he probably realised that I shouldn't have put my hand, put my oar in the water that deep on the opening corner of the opening lap sort of thing. So.
A quick shout out to Valerie Bottas. He paid for what was it? A bit over $5,000 dinner for all of them, which isn't very expensive when you split it up between how many drivers. But he did shell out the check. Good on your Belgium.
Well, I think as has been pointed out, I mean, with them all, even though it's the end of the year, with them all on their very strict diets and all the rest of it before a race, it was probably, I'll just have steamed chicken and rice, thank you.
Maybe a few peas thrown into the rice.
Yeah, just a salad with no dressing. But anyway,
I think if anything, Max should have apologised to the stewards because he said he made a sarcastic comment back to the team. Should we ask for a 20-second penalty, and called them idiots? I think he should have at least got a community service, another community service penalty for that.
Yes,
I agree with you, Pete.
Apparently, he's doing his community service in Rwanda, which is interesting. Which is yet again another sort of situation where the El Presidente is, showing his great support and great love for Africa and South America and all the rest of it.
Well, I have some news on Rwanda. Did you guys see where the meeting was for the FIA in the last week?
Of course.
It happened. Thank you for the segue, Brett. I'm glad you brought that up. On a lighter, more serious note, then, did you see the karting announcement from Rwanda's meeting?
There were so many announcements by the FIA today in terms of what they were doing. I didn't specifically look at the karting one. The FIA sent out, in lieu of press releases, they actually sent out lots and lots of very pretty graphics, which told us absolutely zero. So
this one had substance then. So forget about all those bright shiny lights. You just take no notice of. As you said, if you're on a telegram, it'd be in the bin. They've announced that there is going to be a centre of excellence. They haven't said exactly where the structure and the country or where the position this is going to be. So there's going to be a karting centre of excellence. They're also going to put a lot more resources and guerrillas into individual countries, obviously Australia and everyone else, to try and uplift the karting establishments around the world. But they're at the centre of excellence, wherever they're going to have it. They're also going to have, obviously, a world championship as well, too. So that would be fantastic to see that, obviously, like we have the FIM and the bikes that we've covered, Brett, myself, and the rest of the team in pit lane over the last couple of years, and had a couple of kids on that have been competing overseas, including the Bassos. And I can't remember the lovely girl's name. She was on a while ago as well, too. Well, there's going to be that karting opportunity if they obviously prove themselves in Australia to go overseas and compete against, what usually would be their own private basically European series that no one else gets a look in around the world, where they all, it's just, I've got the biggest meatballs.
I think the thing is the FIA clearly want to get their claws into as much sort of local stuff as they can, and they've got a pathway that and the pathway will be that people will get paid off. I mean it's the whole thing with Formula 4 and Formula and Formula regional Formula or Formula Regional wherever it is that the ultimately the regulations come back to well, it's going to be this chassis and this engine, and in terms of like of any sort of locals getting involved, like people like say like our friends at Borland Engineering or anybody like that who might want to, or even sort of in terms of karts. I mean, are Arrow karts going to get involved, be able to run here, or is it going to be no? It'll be this particular. It'll be a Tony kart or a Ricardo kart or an Alonso kart or somebody's kart. That'll be the official FIA approved chassis and the official FIA approved motor and the official FIA approved tyre and the official FIA approved toilet paper, whatever, so that where people are getting a kickback from, and they'll just shut down like what's a good thriving business in a lot of countries in terms of making, producing their own karts and doing things that suit the local scene rather than sort of a one-size-fits-all, which is what the FIA basically do now. So,
Speaking of approved FIA, Richard, are they FIA approved tyres in the background there of yours?
They are definitely. Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, they fit anything.
FIA approved tyre warmers as well too?
Yeah, hot every time. Oh,
okay.
I was just going to say that worked really well with Formula 4, didn't it? With,
well, but this is the point. I mean, Formula 4 is it was a disaster here in Australia. It's worked pretty well everywhere around the world, but it was a disaster here in Australia. But they're bringing it back again. I mean, and in the meantime, Formula Ford, who have been sort of pushed and moved around, said, "Oh, we've got to get a new car, and it's got to have a halo, and it's got to have this, and it's got to have that," and they keep putting off the new regulations, and you can see they're just sort of hoping that Formula Ford, as we know it, will go away, and they won't, and they'll say, "Oh, well, we don't have to worry about that now because all the kids are racing Formula 4s anyway." And you've got Formula Regional is coming into Australia, which is probably a good thing, but that's basically the end of S5000.
Yeah, okay. So S5000.
So that's it. Well, they'll probably end up selling. They'll probably end up selling them for track cars or over to
you and I are going next week
like
around the You and I, Richard, are going to GRM next week, mate. I made an appointment, a booking, an inspection, and we're going Harvey's on one of the ones there. We'll go over with I reckon we'll get them. We'll get them on a good deal. We'll go Harvey's. We're storing at your place, of course, because your study.
Put them in the front room in the.
Well, your study doubles as a garage anyway, by the looks of things in the background. So I reckon let's get one of these S5000s while they're going on the cheap at the moment.
Yeah, move some of the antiques out and put an S5000. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame that it didn't take off. I mean, and obviously, first of all Chris Lambden and then Gary Rogers sort of put his bid in and tried to make it work on the basis that everybody said that the reason that nobody was interested in open wheeler racing in Australia was because they wanted big V8s. They wanted the 5 litre V8, but they've got the 5 litre V8 and nobody seemed to want it anyway. So
well, they couldn't get the pathway up for super licenses and stuff like that.
Well, once again, that's an FIA thing where they're sort of they're putting pressure on Motorsport Australia to basically say, no, we want you to basically reward our categories and give special treatment or credence, priority to our categories over your categories. It doesn't matter the fact, and it's the same with supercars and all the rest of it. I mean, the fact that you get sort of X amount for winning a Formula or winning a Super 2 or even a Super 3. championship, and then you've got someone who wins, say, the Australian Sports Sedan Championship, a car that's more powerful, even faster than or the GT Championship, but it still doesn't get the same amount of points because we've got to make sure that the value of those old supercars stays artificially inflated because because that's the business model is based around it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll just say hello to a few people before that. Finally got that. Good day to Box. Nice to see you again. Hope you're having a good time, a good summer. Paul Van Acker is with us again. We've also got
Yeah.
we've also got Kane Pollard who's saying YouTube suits you. I think that's suits you, Doc. I think that might be.
KP.
And
KP,
also,
he's a good mate of mine from footy days.
there's some would say Richard looks better with the big logo blocking him. So there you go.
Yeah.
Someone was tuned in the first couple.
They'll get universal acceptance, I would say.
Also, let us know, Paul. I have given it a bit of a flick up, but let us know if it's still down. As we said last week, there's no way of monitoring with this new software. There's no way of monitoring the levels and adjusting them in the software. So thankfully, I do have external because I'm going through an old analog mixer. But yes. And speaking of connecting. Also connecting all the way from Queensland, direct from the bus from work, it's Mark Jones. G'day, Jonesy.
Hey, Jonesy.
Good evening. Good evening, all, and happy nearing the end of 2024 to us all.
Yes, well, we've just been talking about the Grand Prix on the weekend. I mean, what was your impressions of it all?
It was it was a tour de force from Lando Norris while everybody tripped over everyone else. I mean, it was a shame for Oscar. It was a shame in his own way for Max for putting himself out of the running early. A shame for the Haas guys who didn't get onto their best foot in the early running. Shame for it was, I guess a shame for those faster guys who were buried in the grid. But a triumph for those who a triumph for Lando, a triumph for Ferrari, and it was fabulous to watch the top three pull off, and the top five really, because the Mercedes boys did a great job. Lewis much more than George, of course, with his being one of those guys buried on the grid to climb through to fourth place in the end. He got past George, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah. So fourth for Lewis on his final run with Mercedes. I thought, that was it was, and at the same time, it was Lando's very obviously put out a statement to say, okay, Max won this year, but 2025 is my year. So.
I think Lando's probably got to worry as much about his teammate than he does with Max, because I think that I think now that the season is over and they get to the start. Of course, they're starting off with the home Grand Prix and all the rest. And I think Oscar, as we said before, I think Oscar's showing himself very firmly that he's in terms of the way he thinks and in the way he's very cool behind the wheel. He's very measured. He's very determined. He's not going to get out of the road of people just because they're they're world champions or they've got experience or all the rest. As far as he's concerned, they're just more people to beat.
Oh yeah, he's said that at not so much off the track, but on the radio. Yeah, you can definitely hear it in his in the stuff that he says that he's out for me. I'll cooperate to a point.
Well, so, rather than drive rather than drive the bus over it 10 times, because Brett told us all to do our homework. And one of those, the subject we're talking about right now, was the top three things you want to see in 2025. So also, if you're watching the coverage on the weekend, a F1 journalist by the name, I'll give you the initials, a WB, also, and happens to be English, if you didn't know who that is, was very adamant and very outspoken with the fact that the subject we're exactly talking about right now, he thinks that Oscar Piastri will be a future world champion, which anyone Australian blood will say so too. But he said next year he'll be the one of the two McLarens that'll be taking it up to Max Verstappen more than rather than his teammate that was higher in points this year. So yeah, that's just stolen my thunder for one of the three things. But I thought a good explanation would be, and that was from an F1 commentator saying he is adamant that McLaren will also be putting his best foot forward, maybe more so than his teammate, which could ruffle a few feathers.
It seems that Lando's lost a few friends along the way from the British media. I don't know whether he's particularly friendly with them, or he's getting a bit full of himself. But it was interesting also today on Midweek Motorsport is that once again Nick Damon was sort of saying that he was saying something similar in terms of like he said, I was a huge fan of Lando and sort of backed him all year. But as the year has gone on, and there's been things I've heard, both things cut over the radio, but things I've heard behind the scenes, which indicate that perhaps he's not as clear, he's not as focused and as rational as they would like. That he could turn into as he said, a bit of a whiner, and just basically if things start going wrong for him.
Formula One driver.
Yes, a whinging British Formula One driver. We've never heard of such a thing.
On the odd occasions that Daniel Ricciardo was even with him at McLaren, he did. I found he did moan a lot. He did get very threatened.
Has Daniel got his 24 million completely paid out yet, or is it still some of it filtering through? Sorry, Pete?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
you don't know. I know it was 24 mil was the exact final sum they had to pay him out for the contract. But I just wondered.
I think they're just working on. I think they're just working on how much they're going to have to pay out Carlos right now.
Oh well, 24 for Daniel, and apparently reportedly for Sergio, it's going to be 25. Sergio. Sergio, it's going to be 25 apparently if they pay him out.
Because he still had a contract, there was talk that they would put him in an ambassadorial role and a marketing role, but I don't think that's going to work because I don't think he's that. I mean, we don't see as much of him as we saw of Daniel, obviously, because we just don't see that much of him. So I don't know off track how marketable he is. He might be marketable in Mexico, in South America, but I don't know how marketable he. I think Daniel would have been more marketable generally than what Sergio is.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that they've got to, obviously the whole South American market is very large, and if they can probably keep him on board and keep the Mexican fans and others, sort of on side, I think they'd be happy if they could do it that way. But at the same time, it looks like everything that we've seen from Sergio's side, and certainly all the rumours that are going around right now are basically saying that he's going to make life as difficult as possible for them, as he probably should. I mean, he's got a contract, so he doesn't have to sort of just say okay, guys, haven't performed. My bad. I'll put my hand up. Don't worry about the rest of the contract. You just whack Yuki or Liam in, and we're fine. I think he's going to. I think he's going to hang on and make life as difficult as humanly possible for them, and get the very best deal as he's entitled to.
Mm-hmm. So, what does Yuki have to do to get Sergio's seat?
Well, I mean, he probably started. I don't. Well,
I don't think he'll get it either.
Well, the interesting thing is, though, it seems to be like after the tests and all the rest. I've seen a few articles coming out of Europe saying, "Hang on, don't rule Yuki out at this stage." Because Liam hasn't set the world on fire, and there's a few people saying, if you have a look at have a look at the performance difference between Yuki and Daniel, and then have a look. I think everybody, as a lot of people, just thought, well, as soon as Liam gets in there, he'll Daniel couldn't beat him, but Liam will give him a couple of races, and Liam will knock him off and show his true quality. Well, now they've sort of said, well, hang on, perhaps he's a better driver than we thought, and apparently Max is quite keen on him. Apparently Max quite likes him, and is sort of saying to people who listen, I'm quite happy with this guy. I'm happy with either way, but very happy with him.
I think Nico Rosberg summed it up best, Richie.
Yeah,
I reckon. Did you hear what Nico said? And something.
I think I probably, but I might have forgotten. Yeah, go ahead.
It's only a couple of words. He only said it this week. Yuki is there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So that sums it up. In other words, Liam's going to get the gig.
Yeah, but the point is, he's got to get Yuki has to get past Helmut Marko, and being a good German origin, how can I say this without insulting someone?
Yeah, so you're careful.
So I won't go any further.
No, be careful. There's anti-Semitism out in this world these days. It's everywhere. You got to be careful of that. Yeah.
But
Pete?
When Red Bull goes to Ford, Aston Martin or Honda have said, we want Yuki to go with us to Aston Martin. Honda have actually said.
Honda are very keen to keep him. They're very keen to make sure that they've got they've got a Japanese driver, in there somewhere. So that might be the hold up. It might be the fact that we don't want him moving off to Red Bull. We want him hanging around until we do make the move to Aston Martin, and then we can pop him in. But then of course it's you imagine he'd have to replace Fernando because you can't see you can't see the boss's son getting. The whole reason for him buying the team was basically because I want somewhere for my boy to race, and no one in their right mind is going to employ him on the basis of pure talent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the gravel isn't going to be driven over by itself. Someone has to do it.
Thanks, Mark. I'm glad. Thanks for backing me up on that, mate. Thanks for getting bogged with me in the gravel.
We can dig ourselves out over the course of the next 20 minutes or so.
Yes.
Well, I'll get a mattock and a pick, and we'll see if we can maybe a crowbar and see if we can dig ourselves out.
And he's doing Formula One a service because he's proving that gravel traps do work.
Yes, well, he's done very, he's done very well for himself in terms of he's got himself into Formula One, and he's obviously he's there because Daddy's got lots and lots of money, but then he's not the only one who's got in because he's got lots and lots of money. But it's sort of an extreme case. I mean, most of them are just sort of, most of them throw money at an existing team. They don't go out and actually buy a team to get their kid in. But obviously,
I've got some fun facts that have been well publicised this week, but I think we should mention them as well, though, too, and it relates to Formula One before we jump off that subject. Did you see Oscar Piastri broke a record this week that hasn't been broken for a little while? Oscar is the fourth person in Formula One racing history, and I'm not sure exactly what year it is, so don't troll me over this one. But according to the general reports, fourth driver in history to complete every lap in the season, and to have 24 races this year, which is at the top of the pops on the end of the amount of races and countries. That's a pretty good effort. So well done, Oscar, on that one. And another one too, because he is an apology for my Driver of the Year award that Brett's asked us to do nominations for. And and this isn't exactly completely perfect, but look, it's just thereabouts. And an opinion from everyone else, an opinion piece from everyone else would be good on this one, is Pierre Gasly. Unlike his counterpart, which I'm a huge fan of Esteban before he even left a race to go, but he caused next to no damage on that car, self-inflicted for most of the year, which I thought not always the biggest fan of Pierre because he didn't, he sort of he acted like a sport little kid there at one stage, especially when he left Red Bull. But he done very well for the year, and I thought Alpine salvaged a lot through their upgrades, whatever race it was, and well done for not doing too many Lance Strolls throughout the year or Logan Sargents.
Yes, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens next year with Alpine and with Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan, of course. I mean, they haven't set themselves on fire. I mean, as Knackers is saying, basically excluding the sprint races, McLaren had 0 DNFs. The other thing about Oscar's record as well is obviously it was a longer season, which makes it even more impressive. But what is interesting is the fact that all of the others who have the other three that have completed that task in the past, basically in that year they also won the World Championship. So Oscar's the first to actually go through and not win the World Championship. So, but the fact that he's done so well and he's been so reliable, you'd have to think that that's going to put him in in really good stead, providing the car continues to be the car that it should be in 2000. I mean, because there's not going to be any huge changes because they're all waiting for the new regulations to come in.
And Williams haven't exactly set the world on fire. Well, that's about the only thing they didn't do with their car was set it on fire.
Carlos was quick in the last couple of days, though. Yeah, I had to stop myself laughing then, Richard. Otherwise, I would be going forever. But Carlos did very well in the testing in the last couple of days with the Williams.
Yes,
I mean, the testing doesn't mean too much, but the fact that he, the interesting thing was, I mean, a lot of it will be public relations, but already the team are starting to say, look, we've picked up a lot from Carlos in terms of, with him coming straight out of a successful car like the Ferrari and, being able to give them back that very direct comparison to say, well, hang on, this is something that, the Ferrari did really well that this car isn't doing well, and here's sort of the shopping list of things that I'd really like to see fixed up before we come back and start all this again next year. So,
well, as you're saying, it's a good start because remember, I watch a bit of Sam Collins, and I don't know if you guys do, but we all know how renowned he is and respect his opinion. Brett and I do really like his technical knowledge. Sam basically said a little short time ago, only a few weeks ago, that due to McLaren's massive comeback turnaround in 2 years was basically they ran the AutoCAD over the bloody Red Bull and almost copied the whole bloody car they could visibly see, and tried to base their McLaren on the Red Bull as much as possible, and that's how they got some huge improvements in the areas by just the sculpting and where the vents are and all the different aero of it. They copied a lot of the Red Bull, and that gave them just an advancement on that. I mean, not the other teams didn't want to go down that path, but well, McLaren's got them back in the fight.
A lot of the other teams have. It's just that there's some. The particular standout in that didn't was Mercedes. Mercedes have been very firm in the fact that, they're not. They're designing their car and they're not even looking at, at other people's cars in terms of what they've got their idea of what it's going to be, and they're working on that. And it's certainly towards the end of the year, it seems by the performance of both Lewis and George, you would say that they've done fairly well. What did we think of I've seen a lot of, I think, unnecessary sort of attacks on Lewis Hamilton in terms of the send-off that he was given at the end of the race. I've heard a lot of people going, oh, well, he's not. In fact, Lando's one of them. Lando came out today and overnight and basically said, for God's sake, he's not retiring. He's not, he's basically, he's changing teams, big deal. I mean, like why is everybody, carrying on it like this? He's just changing teams. Lots of people change teams, and
I'm afraid I
Hey,
thought the same thing. I think it's not like he was retiring. Fair enough if he was retiring, but he was only changing teams. What are we going to do when he does retire?
well, I think I think when he retires, I mean, he probably deserves. I mean, as an 8-time world champion, who knows? I mean, like I don't think it's going to happen, but he could. He could, he's showing he's still competitive. It's not as if he's old or anything, and whether he's going to have, whether he's going to have the car under him or whether he's going to be comfortable in the car and also with the team. The problem is, I think there's, reading between the lines, there's a few people saying that he might be sort of regretting his decision now, that he made this decision sort of earlier on in the year when the car wasn't doing so well, and now they've fixed a lot of the problems that they had. He's starting to go, oh yeah, perhaps this wasn't the bright idea I thought it was.
This is a
and
bit
Ferrari
general, but
had
I think glass houses and stones. Be very careful. Oh, this is not talking about Lewis. This is talking about everyone else commenting on him. Be careful. Stones and glass houses.
well, and Ferrari, but have a very unusual culture. It's
Tell me
so
about it.
so very Italian, and he's so very English. Uh, Gee, I'm just thinking. Well, let's hope it works.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the problem. I think that's going to be the problem that if Ferrari go into Ferrari mode, that I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be happy with it in terms of the chaos that often ensues with Ferrari, and they're very passionate, and sometimes they're too passionate. Where he's coming from, a team with a German background and a very focused,
Sure.
like engineering background and solving problems in a very structured and efficient way. And he's going to a team now where there's lots of sort of people throwing their hands up in the air and arguing with each other and
On a positive note, aside from what you said, Richard, and a little bit aside from what you said, Brett, but along the same lines, okay, you've got Lewis, 7 times world champion, English, blah, blah, blah. But the team principal that everyone goes to for public speaking these days is Fred. And Fred's a lovely guy. I mean, he's been around the Formula One world for decades, lots of different teams, lots of different roles, highly respected. That's why Ferrari probably had the sense to bring the guy in the first place, because of his worldly experience, not just with that team. They obviously want to hold their own silly, bloody pasta, crazy pizza, spaghetti values, but they still hold Fred in very high regard. And he does interview very well and talks about the team, and not, he doesn't dodge questions and spin like some of the other CEOs as well, though. Too, I think you get value out of Fred when he talks. So I think Fred, he's got that ability as well, though, too, to be able to go, hey, I love mucking around, I love joking, but I'm going to put the foot down here. If Lewis wants this, we're going to go with that. Or if we want to try this and we want to try that, we're going to do this and going to do that. So I think hopefully that the clout that Fred does have already and has been employed for, and also has shown guidance and also a fair amount of result this year. And considering he's had Carlos Sainz leave, I mean, Ferrari have dealt with that very well. I mean, they've made the decision, but they couldn't. The fallout from it, they couldn't have dealt with. They couldn't have handled it much better, because everyone around the world, as we've spoken regularly, feels sorry for Carlos. Yes, he's going to get a good gig with Williams, and we all hope he goes on and wins a world championship with them, blah, 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 and everyone runs off into the sunset. But I think with Fred there and Lewis there, and with their history, they should have some bargaining chips to be able to change things and influence the way things are done and driven, because if they don't, it's going to end up they'll just get railroaded themselves.
By the same token, Fred won't put up with Lewis when he throws the toys out of the cot,
Yep,
which
good point.
which he has done the last two races, like even in Abu Dhabi, he got the penalty, and he was nowhere. He was still driving well, and the car was driving well. And he just said, "I'll retire the car. That's it," you know. And he lost me a bit there, um, doing that sort of thing. And he did it in the race before. But I don't think Fred will put up with that sort of stuff.
Absolutely, and that was number two. Oscar Piastri was my first one, and Max number two was my top three things that Brett asked for. I just wrote Hamilton's reality check, positive or negative, for next year.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping he does. I'm hoping he does well. I mean, I think that I think he gets some of the criticism is deserved, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of unnecessary criticism, and everyone going, "Oh, well, it's got nothing to do with the fact that he's black and all the rest of it." It's just for a lot of people, it does have something to do with the fact that he's black. So, I would really like to see him do really well, and it would be great to see him sort of break that record and take that championship. In a Ferrari, he's going to have both the pressure, but also the support of the Tifosi behind him. But it's a bit like the Nigel Mansell situation. I mean, that didn't work out as well as everybody would have liked. So I hope that it goes well. But he's got a really, really good teammate, obviously, alongside him in terms of speed. He's a bit fragile himself as Charles, but apart from that, it'll be great to see them. Be great to see him sort of get up there and at least be in contention, but also be terrific to see him win as well. That'd be fantastic. But, then he could retire.
I'd like to see Ferrari with more braids, caftans, and jewellery. That would be. Maybe nail polish.
Why not? I'm happy to
race out to do the tyre change, and they're all worrying about their change getting caught around their neck.
All to Bob Marley music, Richard.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not? Jared saying Sainz would be better valued. Lewis's not at peak. Well, I think that's what we're going to find out. I mean, is he?
Yep.
Can he return to that sort of form that he was? And he's shown a few times, I think, that when everything's going his way, he's more than capable of doing it. But he was obviously sort of pretty pissed off halfway through the year, and he wasn't happy with the way the car was handling, and he wasn't happy with the way the team was going. So he sort of said, "Okay, well that's it. I'm going to leave." And he had the offer. Obviously, people knew in the paddock that they knew that he was a bit disgruntled, and Ferrari have come to him with the wad of cash and the appeal of saying you could be a Ferrari, you could be a works driver. And as I said before, that was one of the things that Alan Jones said to us in an interview we did with him years ago. He said that was his one great regret, that he had the opportunity to go to Ferrari at one stage and he knocked them back, and because he said there is something very special about being able to say, yes, I was once a works Ferrari driver. So,
all right, Brett, I'm going to pinch your hat because you asked us to do all this homework, so we're going to run around the room because I've already had two of mine stolen, already had written down before we even started the broadcast, Oscar and then Hamilton's reality check. Top three things in 25, guys, because we're 45 minutes done already. Brett, your top three things you want to see next year you asked us to do.
The three things I would like to see. I would like to see Oscar obviously win. That's a fairly obvious one. I'd like to see Oscar there. I'd like to see at Le Mans. I would like to see teams like BMW and Peugeot and be more competitive than they have been over the past, because I can see in both cases, particularly Alpine, Peugeot in particular, but also BMW, I can see them saying if they don't do well this year, I can see them at least a couple of them pulling the plug pretty quickly. And the third thing, I'd like to just supercars, just shut up about parity, just get on with racing. And if the Camaro's faster than the Mustang, then so be it. That's I've had enough of parity. Today they're carrying on about that the wind tunnel testing may not be 100% accurate because they taped up all of the gaps in the panels in the wind tunnel, and that gave a misleading reading to.
Money then.
Yeah, it's just you just shut up about it, and let's just get through this year and get Toyota to bring in their car that nobody can buy as well, and we'll get onto it then. But
Cool. All right, before I go to you, Richard, just a little bit something else for the ticker down the bottom there, because it only came out today. Was Hyundai was fined 25,000, I think, in euros or pounds. It was definitely in euros, only because when they submitted their homologation plans to the World Rally Championship, the differential was not exactly was the one they said they'd redone it, and it had a different casing on it. So it was just an oversight. So they've been fined 25,000 euros and a suspended 25,000. So it was a bloody a kangaroo court meeting where they just had to get it out of the way. So that goes on. We'll move on from that. Richard, your three things, please.
I hadn't even given my three things. I'd like the V8 supercars to be as fast as the Super 2s. Perhaps almost as they're never going to be as fast as the GT cars. I think we. I think we need. I really think we need a really good quality top category, which is faster than the one we've got at the moment. Oh, I'm sorry about the V8 supercars, but they slowed them down a lot.
And number three?
I haven't got a third. Can't think
of a third. All right. Well spoken. Two excellent points that should be considered. You might want to put a submission into Motorsport Australia. Pete, let's give your three a crack. Just throw them out there, mate.
I don't have three things, but I'm looking forward to. Well, I do have three things probably, or two and a half, because I'm looking forward to the three different championships over the supercar season. That I'm looking forward to it going sort of back to the way it was. I hope that the final series comes down to the wire, and in Formula One, I'd like to see track limits sorted out a bit more on the
good point.
Excellent one. Herman Tilt design circuits. There must be some way of putting in track limits somehow.
Absolutely. No, great point. Absolutely. Because there's so much contention between every circuit. And our very own Father Christmas, Mr. Mark Jones there, all dressed up with he's even put on a beard for us tonight. I appreciate that. And the glasses suit. So I don't know what that shirt's for in the first place, but give us your three best. Three of your best. Shoot from the hip, Mark.
You're muted at the moment, Mark.
Yeah.
The silent treatment.
How's that?
Oh.
That better?
No, better. Much better.
Hey, yeah, I muted myself with that button there. I'd like to see Matt Campbell win Le Mans.
That's fun. That was good.
Because as good as Porsche have been this year, they didn't win Le Mans, so there's still work to be done with the 963, even though they won both championships. Matt and the 963 winning at Lassart. I want to see Shane van Gisbergen win some oval races in the big show over in the US. And this is all. The 3 points that just come into my mind is just I want to have a smart idea of Peter's, like Peter mentioned just about with track limits and stuff. But again, I just want to see great performances out there. And the third one that comes to mind is Scotty Mack and Will Power in IndyCar. And possibly Hunter McElrea as well. So if we can get 3 Antipodeans running up at the pointy end of IndyCar, and that would be
Good segue, Mr. Jones, because
fantastic.
I did see the IndyCar TV rights have just been discussed in the last couple of days. A quick shout out as well, though, to stuff that I think that we'd all want to see that aren't in the ticker down there, but also that have been obviously announced in the last couple of days. The TCR, the World Tour at the Bend, was a few weeks ago. We knew about that, so we're looking forward to it. I want to try and get Brett across to it because I've had the lucky establishment of being there in 2020 for the Asia Le Mans, and so that hopefully we get that back. Also, TCR at Macau is going to be a support category for the Aussies that want to go over and fly over.
That's really weird. If you have a look at the situation with TCR Australia, is there's not a lot of money around, nobody, and yet they've got 2 international races because they're going to race in New Zealand as well. So they've got 2 rounds of the Australian Championship, one in Macau and one in New Zealand. The other supercar race is in Perth, which is far and away the most expensive. It almost might as well be overseas. It's so expensive to get there. So they're going to be over there as well. So I don't know where they're going to get all these cars from because we already know Honda and Tony D'Alberto, they're out of the scene. I don't know where people are going to find the money to be able to sort of pack these cars up and take them over to Taupo and Perth and then up to damn Macau. I mean, I can see a couple of the cars go up there. Obviously, it'd be great for Gary Rogers Motorsport with the new Peugeots to be able to strut them on the world stage. But at the same time, how many of the Australian teams? How many? It would be interesting to have a chat with Shane Suter or Zach Suter and his team down at Geelong and all that, and saying, well, how are you? Where are you going to find the budget to go to
Looks
Macau?
like
I'm sure he'd love to go, but.
Yeah. Quickly then as well, too, the Race of Champions also at Sydney next year, 7th and 8th. That's going to be, obviously it's a promotional, but a lot of fun. Great to see some individual efforts and some team efforts in those little buzz boxes around that little 1 kilometre bit of asphalt they're going to throw around there with some big names coming from overseas. That'd be just a good go-to fun park event, I think.
Yeah, Paul is saying they've got a couple of things coming. Like, see, Winton sort out turn 2, so 2-wheel racing can return. That's interesting. Now, the interesting thing is I saw. Where was it? I'll have to. But somebody has jumped up and basically put up their hand to basically take the bikes off of the. Give the historic bikes, somewhere else to run in terms of next year because they're not allowed to run it, not able to run at Winton anymore. Motorcycle Australia said no, they're not running there. So I think Mallala. They're going to the historic bikes are going to race at historic Mallala next year. So that'll be and that's already a fantastic meeting, and that's once again the bikes will add something special to that as well. So really like to get back there if we could at some stage and do some stories and some stuff from there because that's I went during COVID, of course, and so obviously the numbers were a bit down and the crowds were a bit down, but great meeting, fantastic. Meeting there, so that would be good. Calder to keep improving. Yeah, that's I think that's an interesting one because it certainly needs improving. I mean, and speaking of Calder, not tomorrow, but next Friday, because this is our last show, so I won't be here to plug it. Next Friday, the 20th of December, will be the final drag racing and roll racing meeting for the year. And there's lots of prize money, $500 for the quickest reaction time in drag racing. Some prize money for the roll racing as well, for the winner of the roll racing eliminations. And also, if you head out there on the day, one lucky spectator is going to win a Calder Park merch pack. Not sure how we're going to sort that out, but somebody's going to win a merch pack with Calder
Bob
Park.
Jane T-shirt.
All sorts of things, including a free ticket to the next round of in January. So so head out there if the weather's fine. Hopefully it won't be like it's going to be on on Saturday, where it's going to be the forecast for Melbourne on Saturday. If you haven't seen it, is 40 degrees, so that's going to be lovely.
I thought
Just
that
a
was
little
Monday.
bit of bike news also as well too. That's pretty big. You might recognise a name called Bayliss. So huge congratulations to Ollie. Ollie has just been signed to the Triumph team for the 2025 World Supersport. So he's going to be touring around. I imagine Dad will be on the plane with him. So congratulations, Ollie Bayliss. Also, a couple of things. Driver of the year, I'd like to throw Pedro Acosta up for that in the bikes. He actually ended up being Rookie of the Year for 2024. And if you're wondering what the pedigree is like on in the bikes of that, well, Jorge Martin was 2021 Rookie of the Year. So good luck, Pedro. I think he's going to go to some bigger and better things. MotoGP this year, probably the biggest race, because Brett's also asked us to do a races of the year, and the Max Verstappen Sao Paulo was obviously probably the F1 comeback of the whole season, unless you want to argue Miami GP was pretty good. But Alex Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia crashed out on lap six laps to go at Aragon in Spain, and Marc Marquez, that was his comeback race when he hasn't won for a long time on board the Ducati. So that was huge in MotoGP. That's really want to see maybe a Suzuki announcement next year. That'd be fantastic. And Marquez on the factory Ducati with Jorge Martin defending the title. So it's going to be a big year in MotoGP as well too.
Yep. Paul also pointing out today, auto action. This is it's a slow news time, and this is the problem. If you're putting out sort of regular news and you've got deadlines and you've got to get regular content out there, because at the moment it's still a bit of a non-story. But auto action are pumping up the fact that the rumour is going around about the Shahins possibly buying Phillip Island from Lindsay in order to free up money for Avalon. As Paul is pointing out, the change of premier, the fact of the financial situation for the Vic government, Avalon permanently on the back burner, and very much on the back burner, because if as is looking like a very real possibility now, if there is a change of government at the forthcoming state election, that is well and truly the death of Avalon, because they haven't made it public, but I've certainly been told privately from people within the Liberal Party who are saying that there is not a hope in hell of any government money.
Is
going
that John
to Avalon.
Prosciutto or Maura Deeming? Did you hear that one from Brett? Because
they got to sort that problem out for themselves.
Because there's a
first.
$300,000 difference at the moment. Which one told you that information? So I just want to check which one you got it from.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't either of them, but it was somebody who should know about these things. Who was basically, and whose name might be very important in the weeks or months to come in terms of the Liberal Party. But I've certainly been told that basically because of the fact they don't see it adding up. They just don't see it as a vote winner. They don't see it adding up financially, and also the fact that it's basically it's a free kick for Lindsay, who is they see as being a friend of Labor, and particularly a friend of the former Premier. So they're not keen to sort of do anything in terms of that. What I was also told is they just don't think it looks good. In terms of spending money, it's like, we're spending, taxpayers' money at a particularly tough time economically to allow a lot of rich people to drive round and round in circles in $1 million race cars. They just don't see the value of it at all.
Lindsay won't sell his helipad down there on the island. Trust me, he won't sell it.
Well, I don't know. He's getting on
a helipad.
He's getting on in years. I don't think he takes much of an interest. That much of an interest in it at all. You don't seem like you used to see him sort of pop down there quite regularly, but you don't see him much at all now. I think he's quite happy to have his, collect his very expensive road cars, and and be happy with that. But I can't see the Shahins buying it. I mean, they are cashed up. There's no doubt about it, but I just can't see it being a good investment for them, because all of the problems, the big problem that Phillip Island has, even if you do all of the repairs and all of the modifications and all of the improvements that need to be done down there, it doesn't solve the problem, the fact that it is still an absolute bastard of a place to get to.
And leave.
It's
Yeah.
still 3 to 5 hours away from various points of the population centre of Melbourne.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
then,
it's
yeah.
yeah, and as Richard points out, I mean, you get down there, it sort of works for the bikes because you've got sort of 50,000 people and 37,000 of them are on bikes and they can get out in and out fairly quickly. But you get
I did it
you know,
twice a year for 10 years on a bike with up to 70 or 80,000 watching Stoner one year. So it
yeah.
wasn't that hard on a motorbike when I got my ZX9 Ninja out twice a year for World Superbikes and MotoGP. So I did it 20 times in 10 years. It's not that hard on a bike. Yes, I agree.
On a bike, but in a car. Like Richard would know. I mean, and we're in the same. Go down to the historics on occasion. I mean, it took me. I got home at we left at about 5:30 one year when there was a really big crowd at the historics, and I didn't get home until 9 o'clock. And it was just bumper to bumper the whole way. It took the best part of 2 hours just to get off the bloody island, because you've got if they don't open up both lanes, which they didn't, and I don't know what the criteria is or whether there's any money changers' hands to make it happen, but they didn't do it. They do it for the Grand Prix and they do it for the World Superbikes. They certainly don't do it for the historics, for the classic. And they didn't do it when the supercars were down there. And there's no way the supercars are going back down there unless
they only
there's
use the
government
blue
money.
line for the bike. Yeah, they only use the blue line for the bikes. They don't use it for any car events.
No, I've never seen it used. And I don't attend the bike GP.
Yeah, well, the bikes, the blue line,
Yeah.
blue line, it works perfectly. It's really good for that. But they also allow cars. So what will happen is the blue line turns all the way out to 3 lanes, and so there's 2 exiting and 1 entry. But they do allow cars on it as well too. But the cars must stay on either the left or usually they're smart. They stick to the left-hand side of the blue line, and that's why it works. So, but yeah, they got to think of another option.
Yeah, as far as I know, also Paul's saying the Albert Park pit complex is supposed to be bulldozed after next year's event. Like I've heard, but as far as I know, the plans are that it will be rebuilt and it'll be rebuilt to the specifications that the FIA are requiring it to be built to. So, but once again, there's a lot of money that's going into. Jared also saying build a Calder Park Roval. Would be better multi-purpose. Look, as I've said before, if you went to somebody at Motorsport Australia and said, hey, I've got this multi-purpose motorsport complex, I've got the plans, I've got the planning permits, I've got everything ready to go. It's going to have a NASCAR style banked oval. It's going to have a 2 and something, 3 kilometre race circuit there. It's going to have a drag strip. It's going to have it's got a major freeway on one side. It's got a major now electrified rail line on the other, and it's less than half an hour from the centre of Melbourne. What do you think? They'd go, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. But Bob burnt so many bridges. There are just people at Motorsport Australia who just are saying, no, it's not factored in. It's not going to be factored in. We see no advantage. They see no advantage in revamping it. It does have problems in the fact that it is very it is very constrained in terms of the size of the land there, but a Roval, when you consider that the track is the Thunderdome is based on Charlotte, and Charlotte has an actual Roval. Well, why don't you? Perhaps they could basically lift the plans for that and have a dedicated circuit going around just for club level motorsport happening inside the Roval, and then working on getting the drag strip up and running again, so you can get proper drag racing in there, which is going to attract sort of 20,000 people every couple of months. So
You say based on Charlotte, but also by the same token, it's a scale model of
It is
Charlotte.
yes.
Rather than it's on the small side, and the banking isn't like you could never run and you could never run IndyCar on the on a polished up version of the Thunderdome.
You could.
The banking's too high for them. You've got and the road course has always been a bit on the small side as well. I mean, you remember back in the days of the Grand Prix Spectacular in the years before Formula One came here. Like Calder was, well, it was a mile and a half basically. It was, you know, it was no bigger than Lakeside, and it didn't have the drama.
And the
of
racing was much better. The short circuit provided some of the best racing you'll see anywhere because the straights weren't quite long enough to let the big powerful cars get out, you know, blow everything away. You'd see them, they'd drive away on the main straight, and then they get to the S's and round Glowweave, and the little cars, like people like Mike Stillwell and Gary Rogers and those sort of people, Ken Hastings, they'd fly back and catch up with them again, and sometimes, you know, depending on what the conditions were like, they'd actually get in front. Then they sort of extended the track, and basically it's like Sandown now. It's a power circuit. It's whoever's got the most horsepower wins. So I'd like to see them race more at the short circuit.
Can I say something? As being the only person on the panel who's actually raced around, gone around the Thunderdome at speed, I can tell you it's great fun, except it's terrifying. Even in an XL, I'm sure my wheels were getting off the ground at certain points.
Well, the only time I ever went around, and I've been around a couple of times, but that was in the days when it was, you know, fairly new and fairly fairly, you know, like smooth back there. I actually took the old laser around it a few times, and I rode around it on a few occasions in various race cars. And it was very smooth and very fast, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, nowadays
terrifying
when you have a look at
what top speed of an XL, Richard?
Yes,
top
even
speed,
at the speed of an
what were you
XL.
hitting? What
I felt like I was going to hit anything and everything.
KPHs, just an indication in an XL. KPHs you're probably at.
I think I was only doing 120,
120.
130k.
Okay. Yep.
Well, they're limited, aren't they? I mean, yeah.
You remember
enough to get a
back in the day, HQs and Formula Vs were popular Thunderdome.
I wasn't prepared to go
They
much
weren't-
faster.
Yes, Paul, so you want to try driving a tow truck and picking up damaged cars on it's very steep. I mean, you don't realise how steep it is. So if you're not going at any speed, I mean,
all
yeah.
you need to do is
Really
push.
walk up it.
But anyway,
Just turn the steering to point down, and then we'll give you a push.
And don't forget
get some
about the
speedway
goats
cars
that
with
live
bigger
out
wheels on
there,
one
all
side.
the wildlife now that live out there. It's like this dystopian thing from A Quiet Place. you
well,
know?
they've actually introduced wildlife out there. They've got goats out there, which they've actually Calder have brought in to keep all those weeds under control. So
you can hear it already. It'd be like the first race of the Oz, and we've got the Oz car. They're off on their first lap, and they've all hit a plague of locusts, and they're all wiped out.
As Jimmy's pointing out, you mentioned like speedway cars. They did run. They ran a couple of speedway categories, including the sedans, the super sedans, and a few other things out there on the thing, and they were very quick. I think they were a bit too quick. I think they sort of looked at it and went, no, perhaps not, from a safety point of view. But I think it would be great. I mean, I think the best thing they could do for the dome, and it would require, is basically bulldoze the racing surface and turn it into a proper speedway, a proper clay speedway. And run sprint cars and the thing there, because that's going to get big crowds out there. It's going to be a lot more. Well, I don't think it necessarily needs to kill Avalon because, I mean, if they work together, they don't have to kill each other. It's like they say, okay, second Saturday of the month, it's us. Fourth Saturday of the month, it's you guys. They've just got to work together. That's the problem at the moment. No one will work together.
Then Ballarat gets kicked as well too, and they lose numbers. So there's a couple others out there. So anyway,
but then, yeah.
We've
Yeah,
gone.
Well, we're a little short of speedways up here in Queensland right at the moment.
We'll
you
send
want
some
one
up.
dug up and
Well,
stick
no,
behind
I'm
back of a
okay.
trailer.
That was a rather silly thing to say. I mean, that's just my southeast Queensland bias.
That's all right.
There's speedways all
Mark-
over Queensland, of course, just not in Brisbane.
Mark,
Yeah,
we'll
well, it's the
send lots
same
of
here.
soil up to you so you can build one.
It's the same down.
Is the soil underneath the Thunderdome?
Oh, Brett and I can tell you some great stories about that.
God.
I think preferably off air.
Oh yes, I'm not sure.
We
I'm
could
not
be
sure what the
very
statute.
liable for.
And I think everybody, I think a lot of people here, I know Knackers and a few others would know about, the Thunderdome and have heard the stories. But anyway, let's guys, that's all we got time for. We better call it quits. Thank you everybody, sort of the regulars who have been coming here every Thursday night. We will be back again in the new year. We're going to take a break. Going to take a break now, sort of, just chill out for 6 weeks or so, or whatever time it is. Not sure what night we'll be back now that we're not doing the show on Channel 31. It does free up, it does give us a lot more flexibility, and that's one of the things involved right now is we're not tied into a specific night or a specific time, a specific sort of time for anything. I'll just say, Mark saying, yeah, Latrobe Liverpool battles. Yeah, I never got to see Liverpool. I always wanted to go to see Liverpool when they had the over there, the oval up there, and it was tarmac. But I've seen some video from it, and it looked fantastic. It really did. And yes, once again, we didn't, because I don't know whether we did mention that. We certainly did mention at the time because he was a good mate of ours. But Gene Cook, a legend of local speedway,
Speedway, yeah.
NASCAR, sports sedans, Grand Nationals, all sorts of things, particularly down in Tasmania. But as I said on the night, and here, like when the news first came through, Gene and his wife Rosalie were huge supporters of ours in the early days of In Pit Lane. They, in fact, Gene and Rosalie were very, very responsible for getting us the only decent, like in terms of like sponsorship, like it was seriously big sponsorship that we had from, of all people, Shell, and that was all arranged through Gene. Gene organised there. He knew the people to talk to, and he put it to them, and they came on board for a series. And yes, it was looking very exciting there, as in terms of where the money was going in terms of the show. But unfortunately, it's a long story about what happened to that money, and we won't go into it. But either way, Gene was a terrific bloke, and I'd love to find it. We did a night where we went out to his workshop and basically filmed him pulling the engine apart and doing a complete engine rebuild on his Thunderbird, on his NASCAR Thunderbird, and he went into the most minute detail about modifications that had been made to the crankshaft, and in order to get to swirl the oil around in a different direction, and it was fabulous stuff. And it was we had that many years ago. He just pulled everything out in front of us and said, come and have a look at this. Now have a look at this little hole here. That's something that Roush do, and this is why we do it. It was fabulous stuff. So so R.I.P. to Gene. Hey, thanks everybody. Yes,
on a high note as well too. Well done to. Obviously, he's not going to listen or hear like that, but it was just really great to see Oscar win the Hungarian Grand Prix as well this year as well too. As a proud Aussie.
Yeah,
well.
So hopefully we'll see.
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan. Yes.
Although my race of the year was the XL Enduro up here at Queensland Raceway. That was an amazing race.
Yes. Okay, everybody. Well, we'll see you. Thank you very much. We will have a thanks, Richard, Richard Berry. We will have a great break. My holiday basically starts probably this Saturday when the first day of the Gabba test, and we'll finish on with the last wicket to fall at Sydney. So and after that, we'll figure out what we're going to do. But yes, in terms of going to Speedway, as I've said 1,000 times before, if we'd love to come out and do some Speedway over the summer, or power boats, or drag racing, or hill climbs, or motorcar, anything at all. We've got the gear sitting here, and we'd love to use it. But
Brett.
yeah,
Email Brett, and he'll bring the clan together.
Yeah, so we really would love to do it. As I said, it would be fun to go out, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this, so we can go out and do things for fun again, and not be tied up with the grind of doing a traditional television show. Okay, everyone, thanks a lot. I'm going to click on the red button which says end broadcast. Have a great holiday. If you're into the Christmas stuff and all the rest, have a happy whatever it is that you're celebrating there, and we will see you. We will see you hopefully in the new year. Keep up with all the news. Will be coming up on the In Pit Lane Facebook page and other places as well. We'll see you next year, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Have a joyous start to the summer.
No worries. Catch you later, everybody, and try and stay cool.